You are at dinner with friends, someone asks you about your weekend, and you think, great, I have a perfect story about that. But the moment you open your mouth, everything falls apart. The tenses get tangled, the funny part disappears. You trail off halfway through, and everyone just nods and moves on.
And the worst part is, you know the story was good. It worked in your first language. It would have worked in English if you would had the right tools. Today, we are giving you those tools.
Yeah, because storytelling is a skill and it can be learned even in a second language.
Hey everyone, welcome back to English Zing, English with a little more energy. I am Leo.
And I am Maya.
Last week we talked about how to keep a conversation going. Today we are going one level deeper because at some point in every conversation, someone asks you to tell a story, and that is the moment where most learners freeze.
So today, we are breaking down what makes a story work in English: the structure, the tenses, the details, and the mistakes to avoid. By the end, you will have a framework you can use for any story, from a quick anecdote to a 5-minute tale.
Let us start with the basics. What actually makes a story work? Most learners think a good story is about having something amazing happen to you, like you need to have climbed a mountain or met a celebrity. But that is not it at all. The most boring story in the world can become fascinating if it is told well. And the most incredible experience can fall flat if it is told badly.
Exactly. A story works when it creates tension. Tension is that feeling of wanting to know what happens next. And you create tension not with the events themselves, but with how you reveal them. If you tell me, I went to the store and bought milk tea, here is no tension. If you tell me I went to the store for milk, and that is when I saw him, now I need to know who him is.
That is the whole game. A story is a controlled release of information. You give the listener just enough to stay curious, and you hold back the key details until the right moment. That is what keeps them leaning in.
So why do learner stories fall flat? There are 3 main reasons. First, they give away the ending too early. Okay, now I know how it ends. Why should I keep listening? The story has no tension anymore.
Second, they include too much background. By the time you get to the actual point, your listener has mentally left the building.
And third, they tell instead of show. That is telling. That is showing. Telling gives me a label. Showing gives me an image. Images are what makes stories stick.
Let us do a quick example. Here is a flat version. I missed my flight last month. It was stressful. I had to buy a new ticket. 4 flat sentences. No tension, no image, no emotion, just facts.
And here is a better version. So I am at the airport, right? Coffee in hand, plenty of time. Or so I thought. I look up at the board, and my gate is closed. Just closed. Same story, completely different energy. You can feel the panic. You want to know what happened next.
Notice what Maya did. That is storytelling.
The key insight from this segment is this: a good story is not about what happened. It is about how you make the listener feel what happened. And you do that with tension, with selective detail, and with showing instead of telling.
So before we get into the specific techniques, ask yourself one question next time you tell a story. Am I giving my listener a reason to keep listening? If the answer is no, You are probably just listing facts. And facts are not stories.
Quick recap. A story works when it creates tension, which means controlled release of information. Learner stories fall flat for 3 reasons: giving away the ending, too much background, and telling instead of showing. Fix those 3 things and your stories will instantly improve.
And do not worry, we will show you exactly how to fix each one in the next segments. By the end of this episode, you will have a complete toolkit.
Okay, let us talk about the first 5 seconds of your story, because that is all the time you have to grab someone is attention. You have already lost them. Their brain has already categorized this as a low priority story, and they are only half listening.
The fix is to start in the middle. Do not start with the setup. Start with the moment of tension. Drop your listener right into the action and then fill in the background as you go. Every good storyteller uses it, and it works in English too.
Let me give you an example. In Media's Res opening, I had no idea which way was north. My phone was dead. See the difference? The second version drops you right into the problem. You are already anxious for the storyteller.
Here are some phrases that create instant hooks. Is a classic. It immediately puts the listener in a scene, signals that something unexpected is coming, tells the listener this is going to be good, sets up a problem that needs solving.
Is great for surprising turns. Boom! Now I need to know how you got there. Works for chaotic stories. You are immediately in the moment.
Let us role play this. Maya, tell me about something that happened to you. But use a flat opening first. Then we will redo it with a hook.
Okay, flat version. So, last month I went to a cooking class. It was fun. We made pasta. The teacher was nice. I learned a lot.
And right there, I am already thinking about what I am having for lunch. Here is no tension, no reason to keep listening. Now give me the hooked version.
Okay, so there I am, flour everywhere, trying to make pasta from scratch. And the teacher looks at my dough and just goes silent, like painfully silent. And I am thinking, this is either very bad or very, very bad.
And now I am leaning in. What is wrong with the dough? What did the teacher say? What happened next? You created tension in 2 sentences. That is the power of starting in the middle.
The trick is to identify the most interesting moment of your story and start there. Then you can circle back and give the context. So, to explain how I ended up covered in flour, I should back up.
That is a smooth transition. You hook them with the moment. Then you give them the background they need to understand it. By the time you have set the scene, they are already invested. They want to know how you got into that situation and how you got out of it.
One mistake to avoid: do not start with an apology or a disclaimer. These openings kill the energy before you even start. If you do not believe your story is worth telling, your listener will not either.
Another mistake. Do not start with too much context. Too much. By the time you get to the actual story, I have forgotten half of it.
The rule of thumb is this: your first sentence should make me curious. Your second sentence should make me more curious. Only then do you start filling in the background. Curiosity first, context second.
So to recap this segment, start your story in the middle, not with the setup. Use phrases like, so there I was. The weird thing is, and I did not expect, to create instant hooks. Do not apologize or over-explain at the start. Curiosity first, context second. That is the formula for a story that grabs attention in the first 5 seconds. Now let us talk about structure. Every good story, from a 2-minute anecdote to a 2-hour movie, follows the same basic shape. 3 parts: setup, conflict, resolution. Once you know this shape, you can use it for any story you tell.
The setup is where you establish the normal world. Who is in the story? Where are they? What is the situation? The key here is to be selective. You do not need to tell me everything. You just need to tell me enough to understand what is about to go wrong.
That is it. I know where you are. I know your state of mind. And I can feel the contrast coming. You do not need to tell me what you had for breakfast or what color your suitcase was.
The conflict is where things go wrong. This is the heart of the story. Something breaks the normal world. A problem appears. A decision has to be made. An obstacle gets in the way. The conflict is what creates tension, and tension is what keeps people listening.
That is the moment. Everything changes. The normal world is shattered. Now, T here is a problem to solve. And the listener wants to know how you will solve it.
The resolution is where the problem gets resolved and you return to a new normal. This is where you tell us what you did, how it worked out, and what it all meant. A good resolution does not just wrap up the plot, it gives the listener something to take away.
I had to buy a new ticket, which cost me a fortune, but I made it to the wedding just in time for the first dance. That is a resolution. It tells us what happened. It includes emotion, and it gives a small takeaway.
Let us roleplay a full 3-part story. Leo, give me a story using this structure.
Okay, set up. So I was at this tiny bookshop in Paris, the kind with books stacked to the ceiling and a cat sleeping on the philosophy section. I was just browsing, not looking for anything in particular.
Conflict.
And I turn around, and it is my college roommate, who I have not seen in 8 years. In a tiny bookshop in Paris, neither of us knew the other was even in France.
Resolution.
We ended up getting coffee and catching up for 3 hours. I missed my train, but it was completely worth it. And now I always say that the best things happen when you are not looking for them.
And there it is. Setup, conflict, resolution. The whole story took maybe 30 seconds, but it had a clear shape. You knew where you were. Something surprising happened, and it resolved with a takeaway. That is the structure working.
The beauty of this structure is that it scales. You can tell a story in 30 seconds or 30 minutes, and the shape stays the same. The setup gets longer. The conflict gets more complicated. The resolution gets more nuanced, but the 3 parts are always there.
One common mistake is skipping the setup entirely and jumping straight into the conflict. Okay, but I do not know where you were, why you were flying, or what was at stake. Without setup, the conflict does not land because I do not care yet.
Another mistake is dragging out the resolution. The resolution should wrap things up, not relive every moment.
So, to recap this segment, every story needs 3 parts: setup to establish the normal world, conflict to break it, resolution to show what happened and what it meant. Be selective in the setup, focused in the conflict, and concise in the resolution. Master this shape and your stories will always have a backbone.
Now we get to the part that scares most learners, tenses, because storytelling in English happens mostly in the past, and English has a lot of past tenses. But here is the good news. For most stories, you only need three: past simple, past continuous, and past perfect. Once you understand what each one does, your stories will sound much more natural.
Let us break them down. Past simple is your default. It is what you use for the main events of your story. The things that happened in sequence. I arrived. I saw her. Each action is complete, finished, and moves the story forward. Past simple is the engine of storytelling.
Past continuous is for background and context. It sets the scene. I was waiting at the bus stop. It was raining. These are things that were in progress, that were already happening when the main events occurred. Past continuous creates atmosphere.
The magic happens when you combine them. Past continuous sets the scene. Past simple introduces the event that breaks into it. The continuous creates the calm. The simple creates the disruption. That contrast is what makes stories feel alive.
Let us roleplay this. Maya, tell me a short story using both tenses.
So I was sitting in this cafe, right? Just working on my laptop, drinking my third coffee, not bothering anyone. And suddenly, this dog, this enormous golden retriever, just wanders in. No owner, just a dog, on a mission, and he walks straight up to the counter like he owns the place.
And there you go. I was sitting, working, drinking is past continuous. Setting the scene. This dog wandered in, walked up to the counter is past simple, introducing the event. The combination creates that feeling of a peaceful moment being interrupted. That is the rhythm of natural storytelling.
Now, let us talk about past perfect. This is the one that confuses everyone. Past perfect is for things that happened before the main story. It is how you flash back. The train leaving happened before you arriving. Past perfect shows that earlier in the past relationship.
Most learners overuse past perfect or avoid it completely. The rule of thumb is this: use it only when you need to make the order of events clear. If the sequence is obvious from context, you do not need it. I got dressed, ate breakfast, and left is clear without past perfect. But when I arrived, they had already eaten needs past perfect to show that eating happened before arriving.
Let me give you a story example. I was so nervous when I walked into the interview. I had prepared for weeks. I had practiced my answers. I had even bought a new shirt. See how past perfect creates a flashback? It tells us what happened before the main story began.
One tense that learners misuse a lot is present perfect. That is wrong. For stories, stick to past tenses.
Another tip, when you are telling a story, you can use the present tense to make it feel more immediate. This is called the historical present. And native speakers do it all the time. So I am at the airport, right? Even though it happened in the past, using present tense makes the listener feel like they are there with you.
This is a great technique, but use it carefully. If you switch between past and present too much, it gets confusing. Pick one and stick with it for each story. Or use present tense for the dramatic moments and past tense for the background. That is a choice, but make it a deliberate one.
So to recap this segment, for storytelling, you mainly need three tenses. Past simple for main events, past continuous for background and scene setting, past perfect for flashbacks, things that happened before the main story. Combine simple and continuous to create that rhythm of calm and disruption. And if you are feeling confident, try the historical present to make your story feel more immediate.
Now we get to the part that separates good stories from great ones. Showing instead of telling. This is the most important storytelling skill, and it is the one that takes the most practice. But once you get it, your stories will never be the same.
So, what is the difference? Telling is when you give your listener a label for an emotion. These are labels. They tell the listener how to feel, but they do not make them feel it.
Showing is when you describe the physical details and let the listener infer the emotion. The listener feels the fear, feels the awkwardness because you have given them an image to hold on to.
Let us do a role play, Leo. Tell me about a nervous moment, first by telling, then by showing.
Okay, telling version. I was really nervous before my presentation. I was sweating and my voice was shaking. I thought I was going to forget everything. It was awful.
Now, the showing version.
So I am standing outside the meeting room and I realize I have read the same slide 3 times without absorbing a single word. My mouth is completely dry. I take a sip of water and my hand is shaking so much that I spill half of it down my shirt 5 minutes before the biggest presentation of my career.
See the difference? The first version told me you were nervous. The second version made me feel nervous for you. The dry mouth, the shaking hand, the spilled water, the timing. Those details create an image, and images create emotion. That is showing.
The key to showing is specificity. Specific details make stories vivid.
Here is a technique that helps. It can only film physical things. Faces, hands, body language, objects, light, sound. If you describe what the camera would see, you are showing that.
Let us do another one that is telling. The waiters wore suits. The menus were leather bound. That is showing. Now I understand what fancy means in this context. And I can picture it.
Sound is another great tool. It was loud is telling. I had to shout directly into her ear, and she still could not hear me is showing. Sound details are especially powerful because they put the listener inside the scene.
One mistake learners make is overdoing it. They describe every detail and the story drags. You do not need to describe everything. You need to pick the 2 or 3 details that matter, the ones that capture the emotion or the atmosphere, and let the listener fill in the rest.
Another tip: use dialogue. Instead of telling me my boss was rude, show me what he said. That one line of dialogue tells me everything about the boss, the situation, and how you must have felt. Dialogue is showing at its best.
And do not forget about your own reactions. Instead of, I was embarrassed, show what you did. I could feel my face going red. I laughed too loudly at nothing. Those behaviors show embarrassment without ever using the word.
So to recap this segment, showing means describing physical details instead of using emotion labels. Use the camera test. What would a camera see? Pick 2 or 3 specific details that capture the moment. Use dialogue to reveal character and describe your own behaviors to show your emotions. Showing takes more effort than telling, but it is what makes stories unforgettable. Alright, let us get into the mistakes because even if you know the structure and the tenses, there are some classic traps that learners fall into. We are going to name them so you can catch yourself before they catch you.
Mistake number 1. The never-ending setup. Okay, so this happened. Let me think. It was about 2 years ago. No, 3 years ago. I was living in. Wait. Was I in London or Manchester? Stop. Your listener does not care about the exact year or the exact cafe. They care about the story. Skip to the story.
The fix is to commit. If you are not sure about a detail, either leave it out or just pick something. Done. Move on. Your listener will not fact check you. They want the story, not the metadata.
Mistake number 2. The tangent. You are telling a story about a wedding, and suddenly you are explaining how you met the groom, which involves a story about a different wedding, which involves a story about your college roommate. 3 stories deep, and no one remembers where we started.
The fix is to stay on track. If a detail does not serve the main story, cut it. You can always tell the other story later. That is a whole other story. Is a great phrase to acknowledge a tangent and move on.
Mistake number 3. The anticlimactic ending. That is it. I waited 3 minutes for that. The ending has to pay off the tension you built.
The fix is to land the ending. Give us the moment of resolution, the emotion, and the takeaway. And when I finally got home, I just sat on my couch and laughed for 10 minutes. That is an ending. It gives emotion, it gives meaning, it gives closure.
Mistake number 4. Mumbling through the funny part. Learners often rush the most important moment because they are nervous about it. They mumble the punchline, or they skip a key detail, or they laugh through the best line, and the listener misses it.
The fix is to slow down at the key moment. Pause before the punchline, speak clearly, let it land. The funny or dramatic moment deserves more time, not less. A well-placed pause creates anticipation and makes the payoff so much better.
Mistake number 5. No emotion, just a sequence of events. It is accurate, but lifeless. A story without emotion is just a report.
The fix is to include how you felt at key moments. These emotional beats are what make a story human. You do not need them after every sentence, but you need them at the turning points.
Mistake number 6. At the end, this kills the story completely. If you have to ask, the answer is probably no. And even if it was good, asking makes you sound insecure.
The fix is to trust your story. End it. Pause and let the listener react. If they laugh, great. If they do not, move on. Do not fish for validation. Confidence is part of storytelling.
And the last mistake, which is the umbrella over all of these, trying to tell a story you do not actually care about. If the story did not move you, it will not move your listener. Pick stories that you genuinely find funny, surprising, or meaningful. Your energy will carry the story even if your English is not perfect.
So, to recap this segment, do not over-explain the setup. Do not go on tangents. Do not end with a thud. Do not rush the key moment. Do not forget emotion. Do not ask if it was funny. And above all, tell stories you actually care about. Avoid these, and your stories will hold people's attention from start to
Now we are going to put everything together. A full story from beginning to end, using every technique we have covered. Hook, structure, tenses, showing instead of telling, and a clean ending. Listen for how it all fits together.
I will go. So I have this story about the worst date I have ever been on, and it starts like this.
And there it is. Let us break down what Maya just did. The hook dropped you right in the middle at the restaurant with the stained shirt. The setup gave you just enough context. The date was going well. She thought she was paying. The conflict was the bill, the declined card, the mounting panic. The resolution was the laughter, the honesty, and the takeaway about worst moments making best stories.
And notice the tenses.
The whole story took about 2 minutes to tell, but it had everything: tension, humor, emotion, a clear structure, vivid details, and a satisfying ending. That is what a well-told story looks like, and the techniques that made it work are the same ones we have been teaching all episode.
A date, a trip, a job interview, a meal. Use the same structure. Hook, setup, conflict, resolution. And do not forget to show instead of tell. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes.
And remember, your story does not have to be as dramatic as Maya's. Some of the best stories are about small, everyday moments: a missed bus, a weird encounter at a coffee shop, a misunderstanding with a neighbor. What matters is not what happened, but how you tell it. Okay, time for the recap. Here are 10 phrases from today's episode that you can start using right away to tell better stories in English.
Number 1. The classic in medias res opening drops the listener right into the scene.
Number 2. Signals that something unexpected is coming. Creates instant curiosity.
Number 3. Great for surprising turns in your story.
Number 4. The perfect transition from setup to conflict.
Number 5. A smooth way to transition from hook to background.
Number 6. Uses for showing emotion.
Number 7. A great way to introduce your emotional truth or your takeaway. And honestly,
Number 8. Shows your internal monologue. Brings the listener inside your head.
Number 9. The tangent killer. Acknowledges a detail without getting sidetracked.
Number 10. The takeaway ending. Gives your story meaning and sticks in the listener's mind.
Pick 2 or 3 of these to practice this week. Try them out in your next story. The more you use them, the more natural they will feel.
And remember, these phrases are tools, not a script. Do not try to cram all 10 into one story. Pick the ones that fit the moment and let the story guide you. That is it for Toad episode of English Zing. If you want more, hit subscribe so you do not miss next week's episode, where we will be talking about how to express opinions in English without sounding rude or unsure. Because telling a story is one thing, but sharing what you actually think, that is a whole other skill.
And if you want to practice what we covered today, try telling a 2-minute story out loud. Use the 3-part structure. Start with a hook and include at least one moment of showing instead of telling. Record yourself if you can. You will be amazed at how fast you improve when you actually hear yourself.
Grab the free PDF in the description. It has all these phrases, plus extra practice exercises. Print it out, stick it on your fridge, and review it before your next English conversation. It is completely free, and it is there for you.
You can also find us on Instagram and YouTube, where we post extra tips and mini lessons every week. Drop a comment with a story you have always wanted to tell in English but struggled with. We read every single one, and we might even feature yours in a future episode.
And remember, every story you tell makes you a better storyteller. The first time will feel clumsy. The 10th time will feel natural. The 100th time will feel effortless. Just keep telling them. See you next time.
See you next time. This has been English Zing. Keep talking.